Okay, so we can see the Daywalkers work. Oh my god. That is terrifying. Hey, I'm Tom. That sounded really like... Hey. Roughly 2 months ago, I released a video titled How I Turned Dying Light into a Hardcore Survival Horror, and over 39,000 of you guys have watched it so far. Thank you. And since then, I've had tons of comments asking how to actually combine these mods, so I'm here to show you how. And today we'll be doing a deep dive into all things Dying Light modding. Well, maybe not everything, but definitely enough to start creating your own Dying Light mods and merging them together. Now, first off, we're going to begin by combining all of the mods featured in my last video, but if there's any you didn't like the sound of, feel free to skip ahead. And then I'll take you through some of the most common files people edit, such as to make dropkicks more powerful, increase the character's stamina, enhance weapon durability, and so much more. And last but not least, if you have any modding related questions, or you want to be part of the Game Cartel community, then feel free to click the Discord link in the description, and hopefully we'll see you there. Without any further ado, let's get started. So, it probably won't come as any surprise, the first step is to download Dying Light. Bang bang. See you in a second. Right, it's really cold in my flat, so I've decided to put on my pizza hoodie, and I look really cute in it, so it's like two birds with one stone type of thing. Anyway, step 2, turn on Dying Light. Okay, wonderful, that works. Now to shut it down again. Right, the next step is to download Notepad++. So, notepad++.org, go to the downloads page, download a version of Notepad, presumably you want to download the newest one, and you can either download it as an installer or a portable zip file, it's up to you. Right, once Notepad++ is installed, you want to open it up, and then you want to go to the plugins folder and plugins admin. This is where the holy grail of Dying Light modding and merging can be found. So, you want to go to the available tab, which you'll be on by default. Scroll down or search for Compare Plus, click on it, then click Install. Click yes on that, and it will download and reopen. If it's installed properly, which I pretty much guarantee it will be, you should see these pretty little buttons up here. If they're there, congratulations, you know how to install a Notepad++ plugin. And that sounded way more patronising than I meant it to, so I really apologise. Okay, last step before the fun starts. Download WinRAR. Go onto Google, type in WinRAR, click download, win-rar.com, scroll down a bit, and you can either download the 64-bit version or the 32-bit version of WinRAR depending on your operating system. So what are we actually going to do today? Well, we're going to go to the description of my last video, and one by one we're going to install and merge every single mod you see here. Now, if there are any mods that you don't like the sound of, feel free to ignore them and skip ahead, and the game will work exactly the same, just without that mod. But she is looking at us very doubtfully. She is saying, you guys are not going to be able to install and merge all these mods. And I say, shut up. Okay, we are going to be able to do this. What do we say to the haters? We say, see you later, hater. Okay, I'm busy. I've got Dying Light modding to do, so shut up. Mind your business. Scroll down to the description and click on the very first link to Night Runner mode. Night Runner mode is an absolute must-have and forms the backbone of this entire mod list. I could not play Dying Light without it. It adds new enemy types, weapons, bosses, crafting components, abilities. It makes combat more challenging, it makes crafting deeper, it adds new blueprints and makes the game scarier, more immersive and fun. So in order to download and install Night Runner mode, if you scroll down and click on Files, you will then see under Main Files Night Runner 5.1.1. If this number increases in the future with a new version such as Night Runner 6.0 or beyond, the instructions should still be the same, but please do check the pinned comments for a new list of instructions. So click on manual download, click on download again, click on slow download, let it do its thing, and you will see Night Runner in your downloads list. The free trial period has not ended. It hasn't ended in about 15 years, but thanks anyway, WinRAR. Click on wizard, then click on finish. You will then see two folders, install mod and uninstall mod. Double click on install mod and you will see these four lovely folders here. The last three, as the name suggests, affects DLCs, including the Prison Heist, Bozak Horde and the following. But for now we just need the first folder, DW. If you open that up, you will see a zip file, or a pack file actually, called Data3. Now, you probably haven't ever encountered a pack file before. I hadn't until Dying Light. So before we do anything with Night Runner mode's Data3 file, we first want to go into our Dying Light directory, which in my case is Steam, Steam Apps, Common and Dying Light, and then you want to click the DW folder. So the Data3 file contains any files which have been edited. Now it doesn't overwrite any vanilla files, but what it does is when you switch the game on, This file is read, and any folders and files which have been edited will then effectively be enabled. That then comes with the consequence that if you accidentally install a mod wrong, the game might break and just refuse to open. So that's why we want to back up our data 3, so that if anything goes wrong with a mod data 3, we can simply restore ours and everything will work again. Obviously you'll need to repeat the mod installation, but at least your game won't be balked. Does anybody say balked anymore? I don't know. So in my case, I'm gonna cut this and then go to documents and just paste it there. Simple. And then I'm gonna go back to Night Runner mode and drag over data 3 into Dying Light directory. Press F5 if you want to see it in a nice neat little order. You're then going to want to repeat the process for the DLC file, so go back a folder in your Night Runner mode directory, then go to DW DLC 16, then go back a folder in your Dying Light directory, where it says Dying Light, and then go to DLC 16. You're going to want to back up these as well, but I'm not going to, just to speed up the process. So I'm going to drag and drop and overwrite. And then do the same for the remaining folders. So I go back a folder again, go to DLC 17, drag and drop. Remember, you're going to want to back these up, but I'm not going to. And do the same for 39. This one doesn't actually overwrite anything, so you're safe just to drag and drop there too. Then we're going to turn the game on. Now if everything's installed properly, which it should be, you will then see mod installed successfully, Night Runner. Welcome to Night Runner mode, a mod created by Fear. It is always, always, always recommended that you start a new save. I have continues because I already have used this mod, so I will simply click continue. But what you would do is go play campaign, obviously. You can then start from a specific quest if you've played the game before. Pick your difficulty level. It will tell you what it includes. I personally play on the hardest difficulty always because I am a masochist. But I go back, click continue, and if all is well, you will then be prompted to continue. And the game should load. And just to make sure it works, making sure that the zombies don't come to me, is if you go to the skills tab, you will then see whole new skill trees. Right, so that's Night Runner successfully installed. We are now going to visit Doubting Debbie again. And we are going to click on Daywalkers. Now, if you didn't install Night Runner mode, I personally think you're making a grave mistake, but if for some reason you don't want it, you can just download a standalone Daywalkers without needing to merge anything. But because Night Runner mode is in use, we are going to click manual download on the compatibility patch. Click on slow download again, and just simply repeat the process. So this is where things get a bit more technical, but don't worry, it's really simple and I'm here to hold your hand through the whole process, so you've got nothing to worry about. So we're going to go back on the Dying Light folder and go back to DW. We've got data 3 here. Now remember, this is just Night Runner mode. What I tend to do when I'm merging a new mod is I go into the folder of the new mod and I then create a new folder. Now you can call it whatever you like. I could just call it current. Open up current and then drag the data 3 from the Dying Light directory into the current folder. And current basically means this is the current sort of state of the mod. This is my game as it stands. You then double click on data 3, click extract to, and click OK. And that will simply extract your mod to the same folder that you extracted it in. And then you'll see the entire mod of Night Runner mode right here. What you then do is go back to the Daywalkers folder by going back a few steps and you will see data 3. Now this isn't Night Runner mode, this is Daywalkers. Double click that and do the exact same steps, extract to, OK. And you will see data 3 of the Daywalkers mod. And this is where you merge. So you take everything from within the data folder. Remember, this is data 3, data, AI presets and scripts. You can either cut those or copy those. I'm going to copy them. You then go back and go to current, data 3, data, and simply Control V or right click and paste. And you will overwrite the files. Now let me just quickly prove this works. Let's see if it works. There we go. Zombies now mutate during the day. Alright, on to the next mod, Silent Bites. This basically makes all the biters in Dying Light completely silent. They do still produce footsteps, they do still make very, very subtle sounds, but it is way creepier. You have to really look around and make sure that the coast is clear before looting. So, same steps again. Silent Bites, or Night Runner mode version. Click manual download, slow download. So once that's extracted, just repeat the same steps. Double click on data 3, click extract 2, click OK, click close, and you will have data 3. Open up data 3, do a deep dive through data, scripts, audio, and you will come across HDR sound groups. Now, Night Runner mode already has an HDR sound groups file, but this is okay. Scripts, audio, HDR sound groups, because remember this is a Night Runner mode compatibility patch, so everything contained in here is also contained in here, but this also contains the Silent Zombie edits. So simply drag and drop this time around and click replace. Okay, exactly the same steps for the next mod, No Sixth Sense. Click files, manual download, bloody bloody blah. Extract it as per usual. Alright, it appears that I stupidly forgot to make a compatibility patch, but this is good really because now I can teach you how to do it yourself. It's really simple. Alright, so in order to merge mods in which both mods edit the same file, what I would personally recommend you do is going back to your Dying Light directory, opening DW, and this time, instead of doing anything with data 3, you copy and paste data 0. So I'm just going to minimize this screen. I'm going to paste it into the No Sixth Sense folder. This is the HDR sound groups from the mod. You paste data 0 here, open it up, go to extract 2, press OK. Now this contains all of the game's files which you can edit in order to make mods. This is completely vanilla. Once it's done, close that and you will see data 0. Right, so just to confirm everything, this side you have the HDR sound groups from the Night Runner mode mod combined with Silent Bites, and on the right side you have the HDR sound groups from the No Sixth Sense mod. So we're going to go to data 0, data, scripts, audio, and you will see HDR sound groups again. This one is completely vanilla, hasn't had any changes to it. So you're then going to want to open Notepad++, and we're just going to move it to one side of the screen. Then this is the vanilla file, drag and drop onto Notepad, go back a few folders until we see the No Sixth Sense mod HDR sound groups file and drag it onto there. So the left side is the vanilla file, the right side is the mod file. So let's go back to the first one and then full screen Notepad. So this is where the compare plugin proves to be a godsend, because if we press this middle button, the one next to number 1, it will compare both files. Now for some reason the side changes. This is the mod file, this is the vanilla file, even though this was originally on the left side. It's really bizarre, but anyway. As you can see, the only differences in the entire file is this one line. This mod file contains volume 00. The vanilla file doesn't. Now the reason we open the vanilla file in the first place is because certain mods actually add new lines rather than changing existing ones. And if you compared two modded files, it would be really difficult to determine which line or lines you needed to change, because some mods actually change lots and lots of different lines and you might be looking for a specific line. And so how would you know what to look for? It would take you ages. So if you compare a mod file with the vanilla equivalent, you're only going to be shown the lines you need to change. So now we know with absolute certainty that in order to stop volatiles from making a noise when they spot you, we need to take this line, in red, volume 0.0, and add it to the HDR sound groups file containing the Night Runner mode mod and the Silent Bites mod. So that's what we'll do now. I would personally suggest you copy this line here. It should be 4930. Sound group HUD new spotted by enemy. This is what dictates whether a volatile makes a sound when it spots you. So we can now stop comparing both files, and then we can close the vanilla file, which should be on the left. We then move this to the right of the screen and drag HDR sound groups from the Night Runner mode mod and the Silent Bites over to Notepad++. Full screen it again and do what we did last time and compare. And now you'll see a bunch of lines that are different to one another, but because we know which line to edit, that's totally fine. So we click on the right side, press Ctrl F, and we've got the find window come up. We then paste sound group HUD new spotted by enemy and find next. And you will see that the Night Runner mode mod file with the silent bites is completely missing this line, meaning that this sound effect plays when a volatile spots you. So if we copy this line in red and then paste it over, it will automatically fill that gap for you. And now you can save this, close Notepad++, and this mod here contains Night Runner mode, silent bites, and no sixth sense, which is volatiles will no longer make a spotting sound. Hi, this is Tom from the future. Past Tom forgot to install the other half of the mod that stops the volatile icon from appearing on the screen whenever they're spotting you. So we're going to do that now. If we go back to the No Sixth Sense folder, we have already dealt with this scripts folder because we have merged the audio side of the mod. And go into the menu, texture defs, and you will see HUD DW. So you don't need to do this, but I'm going to show you because it might actually inspire you or encourage you to make your own mods. So if we scroll down, you will see texture, HUD, DW, DDS. Now lots of games have a sort of HUD sheet, and what that is all of the game's icons in a single image. And the game will then know where to display each icon on the screen and when, such as when a volatile is spotting you. So if you look closely, you will see things like ammo. This is your ammo count, obviously. Scroll down a bit lower and you will see crosshair. Now, if you were to comment out these lines, you'd do that by adding 2 / there. That would comment it out. That would obviously stop your crosshair from appearing. But if we scroll even further down, you will see a bunch of visibility indicators that I have commented out. Now, I will be honest, I don't know if you need to comment out all of them, but it worked for me and I haven't seen anything else missing icon-wise. But doing this stops volatiles' icons from appearing above their heads whenever they're spotting you. And when you combine it with the audio side of the mod, you'll no longer magically know if a volatile's on a roof staring down at you from behind, and you'll now need to keep an ear out to hear them growling. So if we go back a couple of folders, we've got HUD DW, texture defs folder, and menu folder. We want the menu folder. If we take a quick look on our left side, which is our mod merge, we also have a menu folder. If we go inside there, you'll immediately spot that nothing needs to be overwritten. So you can simply drag texture defs here, and it hasn't overwritten anything from Night Runner. So you don't need to worry about having to open files and manually merge things. You can just drag and drop. Simple. Fortunately, Nature Reclaimed is dead simple to install because this mod doesn't affect or overwrite any files that have been edited in our current mod list. So hit download again, do what needs to be done, unpack this mod, go into Data 3, Data, right click on Maps and make a copy or cut it, it's completely up to you. On the left hand side, go back a couple of folders and you will see Maps. Because you've copied this, now paste it. And as you can see, there was no window asking you to overwrite anything, which means this mod is now completely active without any conflicts whatsoever. Hello again, Deborah. So this next mod, Human Movement, is another dead simple mod to install. You simply download the version that you like. Because we're using Night Runner mode, I'm going to click on Night Runner mode compatibility patch everything, manual download. Do the same thing you've done several times up to this point, extract to, okay. Go into Data 3, Data, and you will see these 3 folders here. Select them all, make a copy, paste here, and you will have to replace a couple of files, but don't worry, everything is all good. I have made a mistake, and as a modder, that is going to happen a lot, trust me. So if we take a look on the left-hand side of the screen, this is our mod merge folder. This is good. On the right-hand side, this is the Data 0 folder. Now this contains a lot more, but don't worry. All that means is any files that aren't edited by a mod will get read as normal, and any files that the mod edits will be read over the top of these. So Data 0, you want to have Data 0, these overwrite the right side. Anyway, my mistake was that ragdoll and ragdoll behaviors actually go inside ODE physics. You will see here ragdoll behaviors, but currently they're loose. So the mod works, everything works fine, except the new zombie ragdolls aren't being read, aren't being seen, and therefore they're still behaving as they would in vanilla, but if the mod was working, they would be a lot heavier. So to fix that, we simply make a new folder called ODE physics. And we can select these and cut them, put them into the ODE physics folder, and that will now work. So the remaining 4 mods we need to download are all audio mods, so we'll need to edit the HDR sound groups file again. So if we scroll down and go to mute viral banging noise, this mod, in my opinion, is an absolute must-have. Repeat the same process, files, manual download, slow download. extract that. So on the right side of the screen, we've got the mute viral banging noise mod, and on the left side of the screen, we have all the mods that we've currently merged. So if we double click on extracted files, data, scripts, audio, HDR sound groups again. So what you'll want to do now is locate that data 0 folder again. So if we minimize this, it can be a bit messy keeping on top of where everything's located, so feel free to move any folders around and organize them however you like. So let's go into the data 0 folder, data, scripts, audio, and HDR sound groups is right there. We open up Notepad++, drag that onto there. If we then minimize the data 0 folder, which remember is vanilla, minimize that, and you will have the HDR sound groups file that mute viral banging noise uses. We then full screen this. So as you can see, the modder Stinvec has left some notes at the top here, which is really handy to determine that this is definitely the mod file. So if we move over to the left file, and then click that compare button again. So we can immediately see a difference between both files, but we don't need to do anything with this, these are just notes. If we hold Alt and press page down on the keyboard, it will take you to the next modified section. And as you can see here, the line we want is 6989 with a volume of 0.00. The differences between both files are that the volume line has been edited. By default, it's 0.50, and this is whenever the virals go whenever you fire a gun or cause an explosion. Stinvec has set this volume to 0, so that noise technically still plays, but we won't hear it, so it's way more immersive. And if we hold Alt and press page down again, it takes us to the next section, and as you can see, Stinvec has done exactly the same here, set the volume to 0. So if we look up slightly, you'll see line 6977, infected, upset, alarmed, exterior. So this noise is the noise that plays when you're outside. This is alarmed interior, so if you were to fire a gun indoors, I'm actually trying to think if I remember hearing a sound indoors play. I guess there is. So yeah. Now what I tend to do next, and there might be a quicker, more efficient way, but this is the way I do it, is I open up a new Notepad file. Now don't worry, the comparison is still active. You can jump between them and the comparison will stay, so that's not a problem. If we take a look here, you will see sound group infected, upset, alarmed, exterior, and you will see an opening bracket here and another opening bracket here. You will then see just underneath reverb 2 closing brackets. So if I highlight everything that's connected, this is all one section. Now I'm not a programmer, so I'm probably using the wrong terminology, but anytime you see sound group and then an opening bracket, you will then see a closing bracket. So what you'll want to do is take a copy of this line here, copy that into the new file, and then do that again for the sound group infected, upset, alarmed, interior. This is so when we open up our modded HDR sound groups file with all the mods merged, we can simply copy one of these lines and jump straight to it. So if we go back to the first file, just make a mental note that volume is set to 0, both there and there. And then you'll want to close the comparison by clicking the fourth one along, clear active compare. Now remember, once the compare is closed, the modded file goes back to the right side and the vanilla file goes back to the left side. So if we then move Notepad to the right of the screen by holding the Windows key and pressing right on the keyboard, we can then locate the identical file, HDR sound groups SCR, from our mod pack. So if we go to scripts, audio, and then drag and drop here. So we now have 3 of the same file.
What was that noise?
The same file. So if we full screen Notepad++ again, just to confirm, the first file is the vanilla file. We don't do anything with this, we simply use it to compare lines. The second file is the mute viral banging noise modded file. And what we want to do is make a mental note of the volume 0 and change that in the third file, which is going to contain all of our audio mods. So if we go to the third document, which is new 1, and copy the first line, go back to the fourth file, Control F to open the find window, Control V to paste, find next. If we scroll down, you will see this is set to 0.50, which is identical to the vanilla file right there. Now if we go back to the fourth file and change this to 0. So now it will say volume 0.00. Scroll down and do it for the interior, volume 030 to volume 00. Now we could have copied and pasted the second line and got it that way, but it's only a few lines down, so it's not a big deal. but there might be occasions in the future where the lines you want to edit are very far apart. So it's always good practice to make a new document and copy and paste the lines you need. So just to touch base before we continue, we have successfully installed Night Runner mode, Daywalkers, Quiet Bytes, also known as Silent Bytes, I stupidly forgot to change it, No Sixth Sense, Nature Reclaimed, Human Movement, and the first of 4 immersive sound mods. Now in this mod merge we're doing, we only need to really merge audio mods. I've already gone to the effort of making a lot of mod merges, that's why for a lot of the mods we've been installing, we've simply been able to drag and drop and overwrite without needing to merge anything in Notepad. But the process of merging mods is exactly the same regardless of mod type. For instance, if we look at this default levels file, this file dictates how fast you run, how much damage you do, how much stamina you have, how far zombies and enemies fly back when you dropkick them or hit them with a charged attack. So if, for example, you downloaded a mod that made zombies fly into the stratosphere whenever you did a dropkick, and you downloaded another mod that made the character run around like Sonic the Hedgehog, overwriting the first file with the second would obviously stop zombies from flying away, because those two things are dictated by the same file, default levels. If you look here, for example, you've got wrestling kick. Now this is the dropkick. And the line is wrestling kick physics damage. Now, damage implies it's actually how much health you take off the zombies. But it's not, it's actually the ragdoll force that's applied when they get hit. But if we then go to line 323, you will then see move forward, min speed. This is what dictates how fast you can run. So what you'd need to do is the exact same process we've done up to this point by opening the first mod and the equivalent vanilla version of that file, comparing to see which lines have been modified and then making a note of them, opening up the second mod file and then overwriting the relevant lines. You would then be able to run around like a madman whilst being able to dropkick zombies into space. So we will now install the last 3 mods doing the exact same process we've done up to this point. Let's open Mute Charged Attacks, Files. This one already has a Night Runner mode compatibility patch. However, I'm going to opt to download the version that isn't yet compatible. I'm going to extract this. Go into Data 3, go into Data, Scripts, Audio, HDR Sound Groups. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to close all of them except the first one because that is the vanilla file. I'm then going to move Notepad to the left and drag on the Mute Charged Attacks mod file and full screen it again. So now if we click the first one, which is the vanilla file, click number 1 this time because there's 3 files, click the third one in the list and click this one right here, compare. As you can see, it simply edits 1 line. So we take a note of sound group player weapon charged attack, copy that, place it into this document here. Then we stop comparing them. And then we've made a mental note that volume should be set to 0. Close that. And you're left with just the vanilla HDR sound groups file, which is currently set to 1.40. When we open our modded version of the file, that should also be set to 1.40 because no mod we've installed so far has modified these lines. So if we move Notepad to the right, and then open up the relevant file. Full screen it yet again. Search for sound group player weapon charge attack. And there we go, set to 1.40. So we now set this to 0.00. Save that. Done. Right, so 2 more mods left to install and then we will have identical gameplay to what is shown in this video. So, description again, no night loop. So there's a compatibility patch again, but this will only include the modification made by this mod. So the one we just did, Mute Charged Attacks, won't be present. That's why if you're using all of these audio mods, you should always go with the top one, no night loop standalone, and then we'll merge it. Data 3, Data, Scripts, Audio, HDR Sound Groups. But rather than closing this HDR Sound Groups that all the mods are being merged into, we're going to keep it open this time. And we're now going to get used to having several of the same files open. It's really simple, don't worry. Move Notepad to the left of the screen, move the No Night Loop mod onto Notepad. Now you've got 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Full screen Notepad. So now we want to compare the vanilla file, number 1, with the final file, No Lipe, which is No Night Loop. Now you might be looking at this and thinking to yourself, what the hell is going on here? Well, let me explain it. It's not nearly as scary as it might look. So if we look on the right side of the screen, remember that this is actually the vanilla file. For some reason it moves to the right. It's kind of bizarre, but whatever. I want you to pretend that this gap isn't here. Okay? So ambient slums, global night loop, global day loop, hangar loop, fisherman loop, etc. are all part of the same sound group. If you look closely, you'll see one open bracket there, another one here, and then two closed brackets here. Now, if we look at the left file, you'll notice that there's a whole new sound group, Ambience Nighttime. This is a custom name. You can call this whatever you want. If you wanted to, you could even call it Ambient Subscribe to Game Cartel. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you very much. Now, the reason is, if you were to set the volume of Ambient Slums location to 0 down here, you would be muting all of these files too. So in order to stop that from happening, we need to make a new sound group. But rather than copy this sound group and paste it into the mod merge file, I'm actually going to copy the original and show you how it's done. So you copy this, you can go back into your new one file, press enter a couple of times and paste. If you want to, let's just move it down just so there's no distractions. So this is how the sound group looks originally, and you'll notice that the gap is no longer there because this file isn't being compared to anything. So to make a whole new entry, what I would suggest you do is first copy the top line, because later on we're going to be searching for it. Once you've done that, give your new entry a custom name. So let's just stick with something simple like Ambience Night, or Ambience_night to be precise. Now if we look below, you'll obviously see that the only line corresponding to there being a loop of music at night is the top line, Global Night Loop. So in that case, we need to get rid of all the other lines. So just highlight them, backspace a couple of times, set the volume now to, well, we can just set it to 0. We don't need any full stops. So that might have looked quite daunting, but actually it's dead simple. The only time-consuming process is if there's a specific sound you want to disable, you have to keep going into the game, figuring out which line it is. It can take time, but for what we're doing now, dead simple. We then go back to the No Night Loop sound groups file and stop comparing, because that will only lead to disappointment. Now finally, what you'll want to do is go back to the new one file and copy this line here. Then we go back to the sound groups file with all the merged mods so far, and we press Ctrl F, Ctrl V, and we search for it. And as you can see, we need to make a 2-line gap between the closed bracket above and the sound group below. 1, 2, press up on the keyboard, and then paste your new sound group. And last but not least, get rid of this line in the Ambience Slums location sound group. And that should be it for merging No Night Loop. Right, we are on the home straight now and only need to install No Spend Reminder and then we are done. Fortunately, No Spend Reminder is another mod that only requires a single line to be merged. So let's do this quite quickly now because we know what to do. Files, No Spend Reminder manual, slow download. Once that's extracted, data 3, data scripts, audio, HDR sound groups again, move Notepad to the left, drag and drop onto Notepad if we can press the button properly. And now we have 4. But don't worry, it's really not a big deal. Go back to vanilla, which is the first one, click on number 1, click on the last one, which is our newest one, and click on the compare button. As you can see, the only line is volume 1.30 of HUD New XP. Copy HUD New XP, go to the second file on the left, which is the mod merge, Ctrl F, paste, find next, HUD New XP, currently at 1.30, we just set that to 0. Save, done. All mods are now officially installed. What we do is we go back to the mod merge folder, and we can confirm that by making sure that it says current there. We go from data to data 3, and then we right click on the data folder, click add to archive, change rar to zip, and then rename the archive name from data.zip to data3.pak, and then click OK. And it should say beside it, pack file. That's perfect. You can either cut it or copy it. I'm simply going to copy it. Then I'm going to go to my Dying Light directory, which in my case is Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Dying Light, and then DW. And then simply paste data3.pak. You can press F5 to see it in a nice order. You'll see it right there. In theory, everything should be installed perfectly, so let's quickly test it out. Right, we can immediately see a difference. The foliage is significantly denser. Looks stunning. We want to make sure that charged attacks don't make that weird UFO sound when a zombie gets hit. That was a nice hit, if I say so myself. Okay, cool. Let's quickly now check the physics to see if the ragdolls are heavier. Oh man, that feels so much nicer. Oh, his face hit the ground so hard that his head came off. Oh my god. Okay, so we can see the Daywalkers work. Oh my god. That is terrifying. So now we want to make sure that the night loop isn't playing. And clearly it's not, which is a good thing. Let's quickly check that that volatile over there doesn't make a noise when spotting us, and the icon doesn't appear above its head. For some reason he's decided to hide in a tree somewhere, so I'm going to go and find another one. Right, this one just down here. Yeah. Perfect. So he saw me, he started growling and making a noise, but there were no sound effects or icons that made it unrealistic. That's terrifying. So I think we can safely say that the mods work perfectly. Dying Light is now way creepier, way tougher, and loads more fun. It's so much fun. If you're looking for a real challenge, I strongly suggest you install these mods, but you can follow the steps and you can pretty much merge any mods you think of. So just to confirm, if you wanted to make a mod from scratch but didn't have a Data 3 file containing folders inside it, you would make a copy of the Data 0 file. So you go back to Dying Light, the DW folder, make a copy of Data 0 and paste it elsewhere. You would then open it up, extract it, and then you would go inside the folders and explore to your heart's content. Now you probably already know this, but Dying Light has a skill called the Grapple, which can also be upgraded to the Brutal Grapple, allowing you to push zombies to the side or pull them behind you. But the developers also programmed a forward grapple that lets you shove zombies to the ground, and although it's pretty much bug-free, they just never enabled it. Now the human movement mod we've already installed does restore this ability, but we're going to restore it from scratch by opening the common skills file. So if we open up Notepad, move it to the left, and drag common skills onto Notepad. Full screen Notepad and search for the word Nage Waza. Now I think Nage Waza means something like throwing technique in martial arts, so that's the line we need. As you can see here, line 155, skill ID Nage Waza. If you look down a bit, you'll see Nage Waza back and Nage Waza side. If we make a copy of one of these lines, make a brand new line, and change back to front, save it, and we have now restored the forward grapple. If we now close this file, we need to copy the folder structure of this and rename it to Data 3. So if we go back to Data 0, double click on Data, Skills, let's make a new folder in here, call it Data, go inside Data, make a new folder called Skills. If we go back a folder, make a copy of Common Skills, go forward a folder, go inside Skills, and paste Common Skills. If we then go back 2 folders, right click on Data, click Add to Archive, zip, and rename this to Data 3 Pack, we can then drag and drop into the DW folder. We will now have the forward grapple whilst all the other files are still vanilla. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be thinking of a few simple mod ideas, creating them, and I'll explain everything we're doing along the way. But first off, let's unpack our Data 3 file again so that we can begin modding. So first off, let's go to our Dying Light directory, common Dying Light DW, and then making a copy, or we can cut Data 3. Let's cut it. Go to Documents, and I would personally recommend creating a new folder. In my case, I've made one called Dying Light Modding. Open that, paste your Data 3 pack, open it up, go to Extract to, okay. Done. We can now begin modding. So I've moved the Data 3 file to the left side of the screen and I've opened Notepad++ on the right side of the screen. Now as I said earlier, I love a challenge. I like to feel as if I'm not a god among zombies and having to survive is a real struggle. But there is one thing that Night Runner mode stops you from being able to do, which I personally like the option, is sleeping. So if we open up the mod config, now Night Runner mode kindly comes with its own mod config. So rather than having to root through all the files and figuring out which one to edit, you can simply open the config by dragging and dropping onto Notepad, full screening Notepad. And as you see here, you've got casual mode, Night Runner mode, massacre mode, and extinction mode. I always play on extinction mode. However, if we look at the third line, export bool, NR extinction mode can sleep false. If we change that to true, we can now have the option to sleep. If you decide to play on massacre mode, you'll also want to do the same here. So massacre mode can sleep true. So if we take a closer look, you will see two different data types. So you've got here float and bool. A float is basically a number with a decimal point. So in this case, it's 0.01. By default, this is set to 1.0, which means, if I'm not mistaken, 99% faster for a volatile to spot you. If we look at airdrop patrol time, we can see that it's set to 0.8, which means Rise's men arrive at airdrops 20% faster than they do in vanilla. If we now go to shop buy price, we can see it's set to 1.2. So weapons are 20% more expensive than default. Now, if we look at this Boolean line, we can see bool can sleep true. A Boolean is simply a true or false statement. 0 is usually false, 1 is true, and obviously false is false, true is true. So because it's set to true, we can now sleep on both of these difficulty levels. Casual mode and Night Runner mode don't have this line, meaning you can sleep by default. Now before we close this file, feel free to quickly pause the video and have a look through this file and see if there are any lines you would like to change to personalise your playstyle. And now for the third mod we'll be making, overpowered dropkicks. Over the course of Dying Light's lifespan, there have been several community events that augment your abilities in different ways, such as being able to kill zombies with a single punch, using your grappling hook from really far away, and drop-kicking zombies into the stratosphere. But after these events are over, your abilities return to normal. So let's change that back for dropkicks. To edit the dropkick force, you first want to go into Skills and then drag Default Levels onto Notepad. And then you'll see a long list of factors that relate to all of your abilities, such as your run, dodge, zipline and swim speed, how high you can jump, how much damage you do, and how much stamina you use per attack. There really is a ton you can change in this file, so I would highly recommend you experiment to get the gameplay you desire. You could make the game a lot more brutal or significantly easier just by editing this single file. So let's make dropkicks way more powerful by pressing Ctrl and F and searching for wrestling. As I mentioned earlier, you will see wrestling kick physics damage. This isn't actually the health damage you do, but the amount of ragdoll force that's applied on a dropkick. So rather than this being 1.3, let's change it to 10.3. Hit save, and let me show you what happens now. Oh my god. I think I've crippled his leg. Poor guy. So if we scroll down to fitness and stamina, you will see max fitness here and max stamina here. Max fitness dictates how long you can sprint, swim and climb before running out of breath. Stamina, on the other hand, dictates how much you can fight before you run out of breath. Now these two are independent of each other, so you can still sprint even when you can't fight. However, if you look down here, sprint exhausted. Let's test this by setting it to 0, then changing the stamina to 0.1, and lastly changing the fitness to 10.0. In theory, I should be able to run for a long time, but the second I swing a weapon, I'll immediately run out of breath. And now, if we search for durability by pressing Ctrl and F and typing durability, but rather than pressing enter, click on Find All in Current Document, and you will see Cut Weapon Durability Loss and Blunt Weapon Durability Loss. Now you can double click on these lines and it will take you straight to them. If we were to change 1 to 100 on Cut Weapon Durability Loss and Blunt Weapon Durability Loss, let's set that to 0.1. Bladed weapons should now break immediately upon use, but blunt weapons should work almost indefinitely. Let's test it out. So the knife should immediately break and I should run out of stamina very quickly. There we go, 1 hit made the knife break. 2 hits made me run out of stamina. And if I run, you see the blue bar, and you see how slowly it's depleting. Now you might have noticed that when I'd swung my weapon and run out of breath, I could still sprint. So it seems that even though sprint exhausted appears to belong to max stamina, it does in fact relate to max fitness. And if I was to run out of breath through sprinting, I could no longer sprint even though you can in the vanilla game, just really slowly. If anybody is able to figure out a way to tie sprint exhausted to max stamina as well as max fitness, please do let me know. I love a challenge. Now the following DLC release also came with a brand new difficulty level, Nightmare Mode. Nightmare Mode in my opinion is fantastic and is absolutely the way to play for those that are seeking a challenge, adding things like the game no longer pausing when you access your inventory. But something in particular I love about Nightmare Mode is that enemies such as volatiles no longer appear on the radar. But if for some reason you don't like Nightmare Mode but still want that added challenge of not being able to see volatiles on the radar, you can absolutely do that. But none of the mods we've merged or made so far have used the file we need, so you won't find it in your Data 3 folder. In that case, we'll need to go back to Data 0 and search for the relevant file. If we search for locations config, you want the top file right here, the one simply called locations config. If you right click on that and click open file location, it will take you straight to it, which happens to be in the scripts folder. If we then make a copy of the vanilla file and paste it into our Data 3 folder, scripts, we can then edit this file without affecting the vanilla file. So now let's open Notepad again and then drag locations config into Notepad. So if we search for the word zombie, it's not the first one, encounter enemy zombie. If we click find all in current document, it is in fact this one here, line 243. Location def, enemy zombie, map zombie. If we click on line 247, show point on radar, and then if we add a comment by pressing / twice on the keyboard, that will comment out that line and the volatile icon will no longer appear on the radar. Now if you look on the radar, there are no volatile icons, but this handsome chappie. Hello, sir. Oh, yeah, it works. This mod also stops virals from appearing on the radar, and if you pair it with the No Sixth Sense mod, you no longer have a supernatural crutch against some of Dying Light's toughest enemies. So by default, Dying Light has crosshairs and hit markers whenever you fire a gun and hit an enemy. Even against friendly NPCs. Now if we go back to the menu folder, open texture defs and click on HUD DW again, we then search for crosshair, you will see, you scroll down slightly, crosshair hit and crosshair rifle. Now crosshair rifle actually affects pistols as well. Shotguns have their own crosshair, but rifles and pistols share a crosshair. Now crosshair hit is the hit markers, so if we leave 2 / on both of these lines, both the hit markers and the rifle and pistol crosshairs will be gone. Now I personally can't stand hit markers in most games because Dying Light isn't a Call of Duty game. You can tell when you've hit a zombie. You don't need a hit marker to confirm that for you. So if I shoot this zombie here, you can see no crosshair, no hit marker. Much cleaner, more immersive experience. Whilst Dying Light doesn't necessarily focus on guns, there's always been something about them that bothered me slightly. This will probably seem pedantic to a lot of people, but even if you shoot a zombie with a small caliber pistol, the sound effect that plays when they get hit is really loud and, well, juicy. That word always gives me conniptions. So we're going to lower the sound effect to play it at 1/3 of the volume that it normally does. And although the sound is more subtle, in a way it does actually make guns feel more impactful because the sound isn't so obnoxiously loud and unrealistic. So if we shoot a zombie down here, it sounds like you're blowing up a watermelon or something, so we're going to change that by going into our Data 3 folder, Data, Scripts, Audio, HDR sound groups, drag that onto Notepad, open up Notepad as per usual, search for bullet. Now you'll see player injuries bullet, it's not that one. If you click find all in current document, you will then see enemy hit bullet. Change the volume from 1.20 to 0.40. Let's test that now. Now if we shoot a zombie, the sound effect is a lot less pronounced. And it just sounds a lot more subtle and realistic. Night Runner mode comes with a brand new zombie type, the Hazmat Zombie. Now these guys are terrifying and are the closest thing to a daytime volatile. They're able to swipe you off your feet in one hit, sprint, climb, and sometimes they'll chase after you while on fire. Now, Night Runner's mod author Fear was actually quite kind by giving them a spawn sound. So whenever you're running about and doing your thing, occasionally you'll hear this. But because I am an absolute masochist, loves to be scared, loves to be challenged, I wanted to disable this sound, and I'm about to show you how. So if we go back to our mod pack again, open the scripts folder, scroll down a bit, and you will see common spawn presets. Drag that onto Notepad, scroll down to the very bottom and you will see preset def NR gas tank white zombie slums. If we look at the bottom of this section, you will see on spawn sound HUD challenge item pickup.wav. If, like me, you enter 2 comments at the start of the line, or you can delete the entire line, this sound will no longer play. Anyone who's played Dying Light before will remember Dawood's side quest where he asks you to retrieve him a gun, and afterwards he gives you a key to his shop. So I enter the shop, loot everything, and when I go to leave, a sprinting hazmat zombie comes blasting in, knocks me to the ground, and I could not escape. It was terrifying. If the sound effect played, I would have had plenty of notice that he was on his way. I didn't, so I jumped out of my seat. So this stops the base game's hazmat mini-bosses from making a spawn sound, but the following has a plethora of unique hazmat mini-bosses too, so we need to do that as well. To do that, if we go into the scripts folder again, then go into Night Aggression, and open up BTZ spawn. If we scroll to the bottom, you will see 3 on spawn sounds here, here, and here. If we comment these out, no hazmat mini bosses in the entire game make a spawning sound. I'm now going to show you how different files interact with one another and how you can utilize that by making a whole new custom zombie type. So on the topic of Dawood, he has a son called Sammy, and we're going to turn Sammy into a gigantic zombie. Now don't worry, he's not going to be covered in blood and everything like that. He's just going to look like normal Sammy, but he's going to be a zombie. So as an example, we can use an existing Night Runner zombie. So if we highlight everything to do with the GRE enemy zombie, which is from intensity curve to the closing bracket here, press enter a couple of times and paste. So what we need to do next is change a couple of lines. You can see here intensity curve main NR GRE enemies. If we call this main, I'm going to call it Tom creepy kid enemies. And then if we go down to pool type GRE enemies pool and just change this to creepy kid enemies pool, we have then created a new pool type that we need to reference in another file. So if we go into the common spawn pools file now, which is also in the scripts folder, if you scroll to the very bottom and make a copy like you just did of pool NR GRE enemies pool and paste it underneath. We can then give it whatever name we like. In my case, I'm going to call it Tom creepy kid enemies pool. We then need to make sure that the name of the type is the same as the pool that we stated in the common spawn file. So if we go back to that file and highlight everything inside the brackets, including the brackets, which in this case is creepy kid enemies pool, go back to common spawn pools and paste over, including the brackets, you will then see type creepy kid enemies pool. Lastly, we need to change the preset name. So I'm going to call it again Tom creepy kid enemies zombie. If we then go into the common spawn presets file, which is also in the scripts folder, and yet again make a copy of NRGRE enemies zombie. If we then quickly go back into common spawn pools, this preset line is being called by this line here. So we need to give this line preset def NRGRE enemies zombie the same name as the preset. So let's copy up to the word zombie in green, copy that and paste it straight over. Whoops. Cool. Next, we need to give it a custom AI preset name. So in my case, I'm going to call it Tom creepy kid zombie. We then need to open the file that lets us edit existing and create new AI presets. So if we move Notepad to one side, go back to the data folder, go inside presets, drag humanai.pre onto Notepad, full screen it, then search for GRE_zombie. Now this is the AI preset of the GRE zombies that you start seeing around the map. Here you can see the zombie model that it uses, the skin or the texture, any items that the zombie may or may not be wearing, such as a police cap, and a lot of them are quite obvious, so if you set burn on start to 1, the zombie would always be on fire whenever you spot it. Which is actually really cool, or hot, if you set this line to 1 on the Daywalker's AI, because they'll look like totally normal zombies until you approach them, and then suddenly they'll ignite. Forced body scale max and min changes that zombie's height, and anytime you encounter this zombie model, it could be between these heights. Sound preset, as the name implies, changes the zombie's sound effects, and the transform into preset line allows the zombie to literally transform. So my Daywalkers mod will give them the Daywalkers preset that allows them to sprint, climb, and scream and stuff. So I'll show you what I mean quickly. If we search for bitter man aggressive. Now I know I spelt it wrong, but that's how it is in the vanilla file as well. So you will see that all the biter presets transform into bitter man aggressive, biter man aggressive. And then if we find all in current document and scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see a biter man aggressive that has a knowledge-based preset of Nightwalker and a modules preset of Nightwalker. Now I don't know a great deal about this, but I think knowledge-based presets dictate what attacks they can do, whether they can dodge, how they react to certain hits, and I think modules presets are to do with things like whether they can transform, such as into Nightwalkers, if they react to UV lights, whether they know how to avoid dangerous objects such as spikes, and I think it's also responsible for when virals beg for their lives when you hit them, which I think is a really cool attention to detail. But I might be wrong, that might be a knowledge-based preset as well. So if we copy this preset in its entirety, press enter a couple of times and paste, we then need to give the preset name the same name as the AI preset in common spawn presets. Let's copy that, give that the relevant name, and now let's test it out. Okay, that looks so weird. That is creepy. Should we hit it? Oh my god. Oh my god. So we've got the new zombie type working properly, but I want to quickly go back and talk about the hazmat zombies again. If we open up the common spawn presets file within the scripts folder, remember that we commented out this line on spawn sound HUD challenge item pickup to stop hazmat zombies from having a spawning sound. But how do we know that we can actually write this line and the game will understand it? Well, that's because Dying Light has a bunch of definitions files which lists all of the potential lines you can write and the format in which you need to write the line. Now in this case we need to go back to the Data Zero folder which contains all of the game's vanilla files, then scroll down and enter the scripts folder, then search for map_spawn.def. Then we need to open that in Notepad. If we take a look at line 54, you will see on spawn sound. Sound played when zombie is spawned, and that's exactly what it does. Now if we look to the right of on spawn sound, you'll see the letter S. Remember that we've already talked about booleans and floats when changing lines that allow us to sleep on harder Night Runner difficulties, as well as how fast a volatile spots you and so on. Well, the letter S represents a string, which in this instance is a series of characters that point to an audio file. If we go back to common spawn presets, you'll see HUD challenge item pickup.wav. So that's a string. So if we now take a look at line 30, you will see min chapter and progress condition I. I is an integer, which means it has to be a whole number. Can't be like 1.2, it has to be 1 or whatever number you can think of. If we go back to the common spawn file, we use this line when making the creepy zombie to state that this zombie can appear from the very beginning of the game. And just to confirm that we can definitely use this map spawn def file, if we scroll up on the common spawn file to the very top, you will see include map spawn def, which is this, which means any lines in here can of course be used in here. Now we've only really scratched the surface today, but Dying Light modding can be as extensive as you want it to be. From simple audio mods that get rid of unnecessary sound effects to completely overhauled mechanics. But I hope that you come out of this video feeling confident enough to merge mods now, and maybe some of you might even be inspired to delve into making mods yourself. I'm Tom with Game Cartel, and in all honesty I am pretty shattered after making this tutorial, so I think I'm going to go and take a nap while the video renders, but it's been a pleasure sharing this information with you, and if you would consider subscribing, that would make my day. Until next time.